Okay, so I'm here to explain what happens when Jupiter goes into the third house. And this is a pretty simple explanation of what happens when Jupiter goes into the third house. So, the third house represents younger siblings. The third house is originally ruled by Gemini and originally ruled by Mercury. It represents some short travels, quick communication. It can represent social media. It can represent siblings in general, but mainly younger siblings because it's a house that ruled by Mercury, and Mercury can represent youthfulness. And that's basically what the third house represents. Jupiter, on the other hand, can represent husband in a woman's birth chart. It can represent divine wisdom and spiritual knowledge, belief systems, political things, religion, and a good, well placed Jupiter can show how inclined and good you'll be at teaching astrological, philosophical, and spiritual type things. It's an optimistic planet known as the Great Benefic. It's associated with expansion and whatnot. And this is what happens when Jupiter goes into the third house. When Jupiter goes into the third house, we could see that a person could like to talk and communicate things of great spiritual, well, not really spiritual, they can communicate things of great depth. They can always tend to be some type of knowledge and wisdom when they speak. These people, they can just have an lighthearted, optimistic way of speaking potentially, if that makes any sense. These people, they can potentially have maybe a lot of friends or a lot of friends on social media or just friends from the city in neighborhood that they're from because Jupiter can represent abundance. So you can potentially have an abundance of friends either locally or potentially social media. These people can tend to like to take a whole lot of travels or road trips or just short trips, because you see it's the third house of short travel, short distance stuff. And Jupiter originally comes from the ninth house, which is the opposite of the third house. The ninth house represents long distance travel. So Jupiter can incline someone to make someone take a lot of trips in the third house, or you'll take trips and travel for higher belief systems, for something of a higher reason. Like, for example, you might take, you might drive somewhere far away, maybe a state away, a couple hours away, maybe 4 hours away, just to go to a beach, just to go to a park and sit in nature. Or you'll go somewhere to this library that'll have the only book on this one thing that you want to learn. Like these people can take trips and go the extra mile, the extra distance for something that they deem of high value or of depth and whatnot. Um, and like I said, these people, they can just, like I said, they just lighthearted in their communication, optimistic in what they speak. There's always some wisdom in what they communicate about. These people would be like a great salesman. They'll be a great salesman because you see, Jupiter loves to communicate. Jupiter likes to communicate and teach about spiritual, in-depth philosophical culture things. And it's sitting in the house of Gemini. Gemini likes to communicate, but likes to communicate of things of short. It likes to communicate. It can tend to lean to the communicative things of low depth, gossipy, trash talky things. So just Jupiter, a preacher, it's basically like putting a preacher in a high school cafeteria. You know, they would like to raise the celebrations of the young people, of the masses. And it's just a chatterbox. So some of Jupiter in the third house could be a chatterbox. And this is why these people could become good salesmen, because they're selling something and they'll just be so great and captivating with what they're talking about to someone, and they also instill wisdom into the people that they are trying to sway to buy something, and they'll be successful and good in that area. I'm not saying that to be a good businessman you have to have Jupiter in the third house, but these are some of the traits that you can see with Jupiter in the third house. And that is just about it and all I have to say when Jupiter goes to the third house. I hope that this video gave you some clarity and insight on this placement, and thanks for watching.